guys, welcome back to Nyx Reads. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to subscribe if you love watching bookish content like I do. Today I wanted to film something slightly different. Today is, well, I wouldn't call it a fun activity, but maybe a cathartic one, because I've been noticing that my Goodreads TBR, so not the physical one, but just the one where I keep in track what I want to read at some point in my life, the list is getting longer and longer. Don't get me wrong, I love an unattainable, super long, unrealistic TBR as much as the next person on Booktube. As I was going through my list, I noticed a few books here and there that I'm genuinely not interested in anymore for one reason or the other. Which is why I have my phone here open with the Goodreads app. I have my want to read list is what it's called. There's 267 books on here currently. Let's see with how many we're gonna be left with. I haven't pre-organized or pre-selected anything, so while filming, we're going to go through this list together and see if there are some books that just don't make the cut anymore. Alright, so I sorted this list from oldest on my TBR to newest. I'm obviously not going to talk you through every single book on this list. So let's start going through it. And right away, I have spotted a book that I'm not really that interested in anymore. It's Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. I added this on my TBR on February 8th, 2016, and I can genuinely say I'm not really interested in reading this book anymore. I think I added it back then because it was new out and trendy. Everybody was talking about it. Plus, I think this is YA, and I'm now a bit more selective when it comes to YA books, so this is gonna go. Remove from shelves. Okay, one down, a few more to go. All right, I see some nonfiction here. I see some classics. Oh, okay, here's another one. The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. Chaos Walking series, the first book. I feel a little undecisive about this one because I know that this is a good book, or I've heard great reviews about it. I've read Patrick Ness before, enjoyed his works. But thinking about it, I think there's just too many other fantasy books that I'd rather read instead of this, and I think I'm gonna remove it just because at the end of the day, if let's say a resurgence of this book comes up and I feel the need to add it back onto my TBR, then I'm gonna do it, but for now I think it's time to let go. Okay. There's another book that I just spotted. Okay, Something in Between by Melissa de la Cruz. So I put this on my TBR because this seemed like a very interesting Filipino immigrant story to me. The thing is, I've read Melissa de la Cruz before, or I should say I DNF'd one of her books after I think 10 pages. It was part of the Witches of East End series, I think. This is why I'm thinking about just removing this from my TBR, especially because I think I have another book with a very similar topic on my list. But this, I was just, I don't know. I think it's time to let go. I have Throne of Glass in here by Sarah J. Maas. I don't know if I'm ever gonna read this, but I'm gonna leave it in there because every time I see people talk on Book Talk about Sarah J. Maas, I mean, you know what kind of cult following her books have. I feel like I'm this close to being tempted to read at least like A Court of Thorns and Roses, so I'm gonna leave it on there for now. The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black. I remember putting this on my TBR because this sounded like a more wicked, darker version of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And I think this has some great LGBTQ plus rep in here. And Reagan gave this 5 stars only 3 months ago, really? So Katie gave this 4.5 stars 8 years ago, but okay, you know what? I'm gonna keep this one. As you probably noticed, there's not a lot of rhyme and reason to me removing stuff from my TBR, so don't look too closely into it. Take this with a grain of salt. So let's see. Aha, there we go. A Court of Thorns and Roses is on my TBR. Let's see if that'll ever happen. Interesting. The Historian is on my want to read list. This should technically be on my owned list because I definitely have this. Oh, here you go. The Language of Thorns, Midnight Tales and Dangerous Magic. So this is kind of like a, what is this? Like a book within a book kind of thing. This is by Leigh Bardugo. It's part of her Grishaverse world. I don't think that I need that extra knowledge, that extra deep dive of reading this folklore book. No, this is going. I love watching the Netflix show Shadow and Bone, by the way. I watched that with my partner and we both really like it. And again, there's other Leigh Bardugo books I want to read, but this one is not making the cut. Oh, Illuminate. Okay. Illuminate by Anne Kaufman. This was so huge a few years back. Everybody and their mother was reading this. It's like a mixed media book. I think it's post-apocalyptic, but I think this is going just because, first of all, it's again YA. There's other mixed media books that I'm more excited about to dig in, like, is it called S by J.J. Abrams? No, I'm not interested enough in it. There's nothing wrong with this book. A lot of people gave this 5 stars, but I'm not interested in picking this up anytime soon. If I ever am again, I'll just add it back. I have another one that I'm spying that could maybe go. It's Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. Is this YA fantasy? Because if this is YA fantasy, it might have to go. But then again, it's West African inspired. That's something I've never really read before. Mara gave it 3 stars. Okay, this is convincing me less and less. But Emily, who is a frequent fantasy reader, gave this 4 stars and says the hype is real. Kelly, what does RTC mean? I don't know what that means. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna keep this. It is very unique and different from any other fantasy book that I have on my list, even though it's, I think, YA, but okay, you've convinced me. A Time to Kill by John Grisham. So here's the thing. I put this on my list because I want to try a John Grisham. I mean, this guy's everywhere. At this point, does he even write all the books where his name is on, or is he like a franchise thing? I put A Time to Kill on here because I think it's one of his first, but I think I'm going to change my strategy on here. Instead of reading one of his first, I'm just going to read one of his best, but I need to figure out which one that is. I'm going to leave this in my TBR just to remind myself to research that, and then I can take this one off. Okay. Broke Millennial, Stop Scraping By and Getting Your Financial Life Together by Erin Lowry. I think this can go because I've read a similar book, The Financial Diet. I looked up a summary about this and they say pretty much the same things. Don't get me wrong, I still care about being financially literate and learning more about investing, but I don't think I need this particular book for that. I'd much rather be interested to read something older like Rich Dad Poor Dad. Again, Sophie's World should technically be on my I already own it list and not on this TBR. There you go, The Body Papers. This is the book that I was talking about that I think is similar to Something in Between by Melissa De La Cruz. So this is gonna stay on my TBR. The Two Towers, The Lord of the Rings. I already read this. I don't know why this is on my want to read. But I'll leave it on there in case I accidentally mess up my stats. The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. It seems like I'm questioning all of my fantasy choices more than anything else. Listen, I'm gonna keep this because I love The Night Circus and I've never read anything else by her. Well, I think she also never released anything else other than The Starless Sea and The Night Circus. I'm leaving this because at some point I do want to read it. They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This can go. This is a YA that was also absolutely everywhere a few years ago, but I don't know, it's just a gut feeling. I'm just not really into this anymore. Again, very much more selective with my YA books these days, unless I get raving reviews from people who usually don't read YA. When I was adding all of these books, Robin Hobb, R.F. Kuang, City of Stairs, 5th season, I think I went on a rampage of trying to find as many amazing sounding fantasy books as possible. That's why they're all in a row. Yep, Patrick Rothfuss, City of Brass. Definitely. That was, I think, what I was doing here. Recursion. Okay, so here's the thing. I read Black Matter by Blake Crouch, and if I understand correctly by the reviews that I've seen, is that all his books have about the same flavor. I wasn't entirely convinced by Black Matter. I think I would have enjoyed it more as an hour-and-a-half action movie, because it did also read like an hour-and-a-half action movie, and I expect a little bit more when I read sci-fi in book format, if that makes any sense. Plus, I think I have something else by Blake Crouch on my TBR, but this one, I think this is going. I tried Blake Crouch. I'm giving Dean Koontz his chance, so I think this can go and I feel okay about it. Better Together by Christine Riccio. Okay, listen, I used to watch all of her videos years ago. I read Again But Better, and that was okay. I mean, I know that it was a debut, but again, with my YAs, I'm really picky now, and I'm just really not interested in this one anymore. I do think that her path going from booktuber to published author is pretty cool though. It was very interesting to be able to witness that. But speaking of YA, The Space Between Worlds, I think this is YA, but I remember the plot sounding so incredibly interesting that I'm leaving this in there. Oh, okay, here. Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim by David Sedaris. Yeah, this has to go. Just because I tried David Sedaris last year. Which one was the book that I tried? Yeah, it was Calypso. And I DNF'd this after listening to the audiobook for a few minutes. It's nothing personal, it's just I noticed that the humor, it's very self-deprecating, but in a very odd way that just really didn't speak to me, and I'm guessing that all of his books have the same tone. So I think it's kind of like, it's a comedian, right? Like if you like their jokes, if you like their style, then great. Don't need to explain yourself, but for me this one really just doesn't work, so yeah, this one has to go. Okay, Bag of Bones by Stephen King. This has to go. The reason that this is on my TBR is because back when I had Audible, no, I think it's Kindle. I don't know if they still have it, but they used to have a book selected for the month and that everybody who signed up can get for free. There was an English choice and a French choice, and I think I had already read the English choice, so I chose the French version of Bag of Bones. But for me to get to a point where I want to sit down and read an entire book in French and then my Stephen King, probably not going to happen, just because I technically am done with Stephen King. A few years ago, I said to myself that as soon as I read The Shining and I'm still not into his writing style, then I don't have to do Stephen King anymore. I feel like I read his key books and I'm good with that. So this is going. Ah, there you go. See, I had another book by Blake Crouch on my list, Pines. Apparently this is a good series, so you know what, I'm giving it, this is maybe my like giving Blake Crouch a second chance book. If I don't like this, then I'm okay with Blake Crouch not popping back onto my TBR, but I'm okay with giving people, technically no, I don't like to give second chances, but for authors, okay, fine. I guess the closer I am to what I have more recently added to my list, I'm still interested in, which makes sense. Lessons in Chemistry, why is this on the list? I read that one, I have a review on this up. One True Loves as well. Okay, you know what? Just anybody's Goodreads sometimes have these weird bugs, because mine does. Sea of Monsters, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Okay, here's the thing. I read the first one, had fun with it, but ever since then I've never had the ick to pick up the second book. I think I'm gonna do it at some point, pick up the second book, and then if I'm still not feeling like, you know what, I don't really necessarily need to read the third, then I'm gonna call it quits with the series. But I enjoyed the first one enough to give the second one a try. Legends and Lattes. I just got a notification from my library that I can pick this book up after a few months. But now I technically have so many other books to read, so I'll try to squeeze it in, because who knows how many more months I would have to wait if I returned this to the library right away. You see, I was lying to you. On Writing, a memoir of the craft by Stephen King. I know I just said I'm over Stephen King, but I'm making a huge exception for his memoir, because I heard that this is a fantastic work of nonfiction. And I know that for quite a few books that he wrote, he was actually abusing drugs at the time, and apparently it shows in his writing. So, and I think this man has just had a very interesting life in general. And I mean, he is one of the greats. So for this one, I am genuinely interested in reading. Also, I need to create some kind of new tag for my Goodreads that is maybe named something like Book Talk or Book Reels or something, where I can put all of the books that I see on my Reels and TikTok that seem interesting. I don't want to forget about them, but I'm also not committing to putting them on my TBR. Does anybody have an idea for a cute name for a tag? I think we're good now. Let's see, because these are really recently were added, and I'm okay with all of these. Let's see. Oh yeah, these, for example, pretty much heard me talking about already. And we have arrived at the end. Yes, I just added Carmilla yesterday night to my TBR because I was watching a few scenes from Castlevania with my partner. He watched the entire series. And I added this because I recently also read Dracula. So I think it's time to pick up Carmilla. All right, that wasn't too bad. It looks like my taste is generally pretty steady. I'm left with 256 books on my want to read. Keeping in mind that I have a separate list for the physical books that I already own that are waiting for me. It's called Waiting on My Bookshelves, in case you want to browse through my list on my Goodreads profile. And then I have another tag that I recently created. It's called Recommended to Me. So literally, if people in the comments or in real life recommend a book to me, this is where the book goes. I think that was very successful. It makes me happy to think that now if I browse through this list, I'm not faced with books where I'm like, that really shouldn't be on there anymore. If you're still watching and you want to let me know that you're still here, why don't you leave me some kind of emoji relating to clean, like a trash can? Or a broom emoji, something like that. Let's see what you come up with. Let me know, is this something that you do sometimes, cleaning up your TBR, either with actual books or lists that you keep somewhere on a piece of paper, in a notebook, on Goodreads, on an Excel? Let me know what you guys think. Have you read any of the books that I removed from my TBR, and do you think that I'm making a mistake? Please subscribe to this channel if you're interested in hearing me talk about other books, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.